Welcome to the Phoenix Prosperity Podcast, where wealth meets legacy. Join your host, Tim Fergestad, as we explore the journeys of Phoenix's finest to success and beyond.
Hello, this is Tim Fergestad. Thank you for joining us. I'm very pleased to have Renee Scherzer with me here today. Renee is the Senior Vice President of the Retirement and Wealth Division of One Digital and specializes in retirement plan consulting. Crazy important stuff. Welcome to the show, Renee.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate being here.
Excellent. So first, can you talk a little bit about One Digital and the
Yes.
bigger picture of what you do there?
Yes. Well, I sold my business as well as my husband. We did almost 3 years ago. He did benefits. Yes. You kind of start a business. I had started it. I'd worked for the larger companies, took a leap and started my own company before I had children because I had a lot of financial goals, but I also understood the confinements of, some of the large companies I worked with.
Was that scary?
Very scary. My quote every day was take the leap and build your wings on the way down. So there's moments where I was like, I'm building my wings. And so I'm a very big mantra quote, Bible verse person. My morning routine is actually 2 hours long now too, which is, I'm someone who really sets a strong foundation. I'm an early riser. And so I took the leap.
Probably gives you a lot of focus and keeps you on track.
Oh, it's fantastic. I share it with people and they're like, I go, it's the old Atomic Habits, which I actually reread just like 2 weeks ago, kind of that habit building where you habit stack. And so earlier at that time, I was like, I had written in my early 20s, I had written 100 things I wanted in life. And it had from how many kids I wanted to have to I wanted my bank account, what I wanted my income to be. And I hit all of them, but one was be on Oprah. So maybe with the book I write, I will be on her podcast, but they were pretty far-fetched goals, but I hit them all, but I was focusing on my goals. And I earlier in my career, when I started my business, it was terrifying. I was a little not-for-profit, not by purpose, but didn't know how to price my services. Well, 25 years later, my husband had left a big company, built his business for 8 years. We joined forces and sold to One Digital. So we went to the market and said, okay, I specialize in company retirement plans. My husband specializes in benefits. And we went to the companies that had that aggregation. And One Digital was who we chose to sell to almost 3 years ago. In January will be 3 years because they represent what we work together. And so they do. We also do HR consulting as well as property and casualty and PEO services. So we call it in our industry an aggregator. So we can be a one-stop solution for business clients.
Excellent. Okay. And you're both based here in Phoenix.
Yep.
Area, but you service clients.
I have clients, and I'll do calls
nationally?
at 6 a.m. I did some education for a large client out of New York, and so I had a 6 a.m., 7:15, and 9:30. So I still I have teams and members that can help with education. But I think when I started in the business, one thing I always loved was the education component of having people, create a healthy relationship with money. And, most people that are maybe the non-rank and file, their only opportunity to have financial education is to what we can do. And so, I have clients that are across the nation. And so I will get up, I'm up at 4 anyway, but any hours and try to bring that extra layer of attention to them. So they get they don't have to be part of the C-suite to get the full suite of services and education we can provide.
Okay. And then big picture again for our viewers or listeners, what the bigger scope of retirement planning consists of?
Well, what we do is we really work with companies that either, we come in of what they existing have or help create them a retirement and financial wellness suite of services and benefits. So all of their employees have the opportunity to save for their future retirement. And so what we do is we specialize in not just the establishment of it, but we operate as fiduciaries for the plan. So we help establish and maintain the oversight and compliance. We help create the educational outreach, personalized solutions for their employees. We look at data, demographics, to make sure it's running successfully. At the committee meeting, we usually have all the decision makers on. So I try to make them entertaining just because I find it interesting, but we'll cover things from giving them the data of the plan to regulatory updates, legislation. The government gets involved in these plans, but making sure that the leaders of the company feel confident in the benefit that they're offering and they're not taking unnecessary liability for it.
Okay.
So we go through from the investments to success of the plan, but we help companies kind of focus on what they're good at while we make their employees financially well.
Right. Okay. And is there a range of sizes that you work with?
We usually work with larger groups, usually 100 plus employees, to upwards of thousands of employees that we work with. And so, yeah, there's an evolution. It's been interesting from when we first started. We used to have, I used to manually make this investment performance lineup and color code stocks versus bond investments and just go in line by line. Technology's evolved, and the solutions we've been able to do is we could take a smaller company that may have 100 employees, and they're going to have a world-class plan that our multiple thousands of company plan will have. There's no deciding difference. So yeah, it's pretty unique what we can do.
Okay. I feel obliged to ask, based off of the news, how the retirement proposals. I don't remember if everything's been confirmed yet or
we've
not.
had a couple
How that
laws
would
passed.
impact.
Yeah, we've had a couple of laws passed too, and maybe there's concern with Social Security, and I think I shared with you earlier. We met with Congressman Schweikert, who is fantastic data to help. He is a big advocate, helping really look at identifying the Social Security fund. For most people, they're really focused on that being a part of their retirement. What we look to do with having a company retirement plan is giving them an opportunity to build wealth with themselves. Usually the company has a match to it. Now, the government's come in with two laws since 2018, Secure 2.0 and then and recently in 2022, and then Secure 1.0 and 1.0, and they're already working on Secure 3.0. So some of the laws that they've changed is it impacts required mandated Roth contributions. It's mandated when people have to take money out. Right. We're likely looking to see potential limitations for the higher income earners in the next bill. So that's definitely affected. I mean, Social Security is anticipated to be the fund to be default and to be delinquent in the next 7 years. And so if, the one thing they're going to have to do is either raise taxes or decrease benefits by over 20%. So I think, some of that, what we try to do is really educate the individual so they're not caught by surprise. Right. And that's the biggest thing is, you taking control of your own future. And I'm just a big proponent of education and knowledge and doing it in bite-sized digestible pieces and not overwhelming people.
Right. So what are the common misconceptions that people have then with not just their plans, but with what you do and what they expect you to provide?
Yeah, the biggest misconception I think for most people is that my retirement's taken care of for me, or I'm always going to work. And so people think like, oh, I'm just going to, one of the biggest things I've heard, I've talked to thousands and thousands of people over the last 25 plus years, is that, I'm just never going to retire. I'm not going to be able to retire. And they'll focus so much on their financial stuff on the immediate and the now. And they also get caught up on, as their income rises, they keep accelerating their standard of living. And so they get in over their
lifestyle creep.
The lifestyle creep, and then they get stuck, and all of a sudden they're in a place where their house isn't paid off. They're having car payments. One of the misconceptions, biggest thing I always talk on financial wellness is that don't go into a car purchase unless you can buy it in 3 years. But what is when they go walk on the lot, they see the new shiny car and they think, sure, I can afford this thing that's going to be, these payments the next 5 years, and they roll into the next one. The biggest misconception too is like they said they're always going to work. Well, what if your industry shifts and, a lot of industries, it's not a young guy's sport anymore, or it's not an old guy's sport anymore. And all of a sudden what they do can be replaced by someone who's a lot less expensive and their jobs become obsolete. Maybe their health.
And you're working in retirement is bagging groceries.
You see that shift. And so, when I talk about data with the investment committee, because you've got, people who are the CFOs chief accounting officers or chief people officers at these committees. And, we educate them because we look at the data to say your average workforce, the average account balance is $30,000. Well, most people, you can't retire on $30,000.
No.
And so we really dive into the data of, and one of the laws in Secure 2.0 was any new plan that was created after January 1st, 2023 had to be auto-enrolled and auto-escalated. So before it was employee had to opt in. Now they have to be auto-enrolled at least 3%. And then auto-escalated to beyond 10%. So that's helping a little bit because people don't usually opt out of the plan. But then when they have access to it through loans or other hardship distributions, we see a lot of leakage. And where, with the passage of the the continuation of the big, the one big beautiful bill for Trump, the benefit was potentially stimulating the economy. The negative is that deficit's going to increase by $3.4 trillion in 10 years, but we're also seeing an increase in debt. So I was with a client committee yesterday, and they have 15% of their workforce are taking loans. We used to see that at 6-7% for this group. So people are in financial stress. So I think a lot of people the misconception is that, they think they're never going to retire and they have plenty of money or Social Security will be there for them.
Right. Historically, I mean, retirement is kind of a modern thing, right? Like 100 years ago or something.
Yeah.
Otherwise, right? Most people, I don't think that was even a word, was it? When did it come about?
People historically they have pension plans too. They work for the same company. Well, now you've got this generation, this new younger generation, they're going to change jobs 7 times.
Right.
That was it was a study on Wall Street Journal did. I think it was last year. Was someone entered the workforce, and now there's Workforce Reimagined. That when we were starting out, we wasn't that hybrid environment, the work from home. People are working from I have clients that have 100% of their workforce is remote. So you're losing, you're balancing also that cultural shift and longevity of a company if someone doesn't feel connected. Sure. But the younger generation are shifting jobs so much. So our biggest concern, and part of what was passed recently, was the ability for someone to move money between retirement accounts. Where there's a consortium of about 10 firms, larger firms that can do it now. Well, because 68% of people before, if they said, oh, it's less than $10,000, let me just take the tax hit and I'll take the money out. Well, then you don't have that, those first dollars are the most powerful dollars of someone's investment. Well, they're not creating that accumulation and having their money work for them. So we see, some of the laws we talk about is just helping prevent that leakage. Because there's one of the gentlemen I worked with a client, he eventually moved to be with his wife, the family, because they had kids. I worked with him every year. Is at one of my most favorite 25-year client relationships. And every year he sat with me, and we started when he first got his first paycheck. And when he left to move, he had $350,000, $400,000. And it was and his company is very generous. He sat down, committed to the bumping it up, but we got him at the first paycheck, and he wasn't a high income earner. So, it is possible to build wealth, but when we get the commitment, I'm selective of clients, I thankfully can be, but to work with companies that are willing to not just commit to the financial and the compliance and fiduciary oversight on their part, but also work with us and take our, we have monthly education sessions. We have one-on-one guidance that an employee can call at any time. They have their coach. They can talk to them as many times as they want with no additional cost. And it could be about covering their student debt. It doesn't have to be about the 401k plan. So we've got the tools and resources there, but we do need the engagement from a company for their employees to be successful. But think about the cost to an organization if they have employees that can't retire. That's, healthcare, all those other expenses go up.
And that's, I don't remember the numbers. I mean, I believe most people have most of their net worth in their houses still. Is that, I think, true?
We do see that a lot. We try to get them. And then if any investable dollars outside of that is usually within the retirement account. But they get to retirement, they don't know how to also, first of all, we even have a session about the emotions of retirement. I had a fantastic talk with a woman who's going to be retiring next year, and she's fantastic, worked for the same company for 32 years, financially is in a great position to retire. By the end of the talk, it's like a reimagined retirement. She's too young to just not do anything, but she's going to create another business, have a tax write-off, and reimagine what that path looks like for her. And then her
Right.
money's going to, and when her husband retires after her, they're going to have longevity to those retirement dollars, even beyond what they're expecting. So I think we start changing that narrative. It's kind of like that younger generation has it figured out. We got in the rat race. We ran fast. You just kept
Right.
running, and all of a sudden you looked up and you're like, who am I now?
Right.
What am I doing? And that's kind of why I'm starting this other business as well, and writing a book on just it's really about the light work, the work from within, and the work that it's all those little steps, those little habits that creates the biggest success. But I have these fantastic talks with people who are financially in position to retire, but yet they're like, who am I outside of retirement? And getting
Right.
them to think of, it's a reimagined retirement, like how I can still create this, excitement, because people get to retirement, they're like, you think Social Security, Medicare, what's that going to all be? Just how much, what's my lifetime income? How much can I spend? And then they're like, but then who am I in retirement? And so, so yeah, we've got some fun talks with people that we get engaged with, that we kind of almost create a different strategy on what that last phase of their life looks like.
Okay. And well, speaking of strategies and going back to the laws that are passed recently, there's more. Has that been made official that people can direct more of their 401ks?
Yeah, a new executive order that President Trump signed August 7th was about alternative investments too,
Right.
which is interesting. Now they've always, we have pretty much, I think every single plan we have is self-directed, where everyone has the ability to
Okay.
individually direct their investments. Now, one of the
Some
things
of the
that
bigger players do not. They have a restricted menu of options,
yes,
right?
we put them through a screening. We have a 100-point screening process that we analyze them every quarter. Some clients we take full fiduciary liability for the investments. They call it a 338, where we make all the investment decisions for the plan.
Okay.
Some companies, and even one of our larger groups, move to that direction, because sometimes we can also get really low expense pricing for that.
Okay.
In collective investment trusts, that's normally just available, for big companies. And we can drive the cost down from a target date solution that may be a 9 basis point fee or 0.09% to a 0.03%, because we're taking on the liability, and the organizations
Okay.
know the protection we're going to have. And then we also share as a 321 fiduciary if companies want to share the responsibility and they want some of the say in the lineup. So I have a group that wanted to add a NASDAQ index option, and it's a type of group that is a more sophisticated group, and we share in the liability of the of fiduciary. So we are screening them, and there's one that fits our investment policy, and we'll add it. So our investment lineup, if the DOL, I've been through 8 DOL audits with clients over the years. I should say 7 DOL, 1 IRS. And they look at, so we have investment policy that goes through what investments do we have in the plan, what defines when they can stay, when we need to replace them. So companies, the individuals, it doesn't even matter how sophisticated they are. The lineup is spectacular. We get the best lineup. It's a lineup that I would invest in. So, so as far as restrictions, sometimes it just becomes what role we play as a fiduciary, and can we be a little bit more flexible. Now, with this new alternative investment executive order, now under the private investor, we can invest. And we're owned by a private equity company. We have a large amount in private equity. Some of our, a large percentage, some of our investments are in a private equity investment. Well, at the company scale, for organizations, historically, if a company grew too big, they were going to go public. And now we've got a large percentage now selling to private equity and maintaining that. So basically what the concern was is that, private investors can invest in that type of alternative investments, whether it's crypto, private equity, a little bit more than real estate. They can get that option there, but now they're looking to say, what can it look like within a retirement plan? Now, so that we'll expect in February, we'll see the DOL, SEC, and Treasury show up what the guidelines look like. And we're also seeing some innovation, because obviously liquidity in those investments are a concern. But we tend to think that they're going to come back with some solutions that we can kind of fit within our investment policy, that we can have, don't have a liquidity concern. So we're seeing a lot of innovation there, and that's going to be the next thing that we see coming.
Are you talking about tokenization?
And what do you mean in that way?
Of it's like a tertiary market for historically illiquid sort of investments, right? So
Yeah, at a small scale. Like it's kind of almost like a company offering their own publicly traded stock. Like, we put bumpers on it. Because from the individual level, liquidity isn't an issue, but at a plan level, it's different. And so,
Okay.
so yeah, maybe a little bit like that. But there's gonna be bumpers on it because these are risk governed plans.
Okay. Okay. Interesting. Okay. So, I like to ask people about some of the bigger challenges they've had in their career. Uh, uh, I'm
Yeah,
sure the more successful people are, the more challenges they've had, right? Which is kind
yeah,
of the struggle is what makes you successful.
yeah.
Is there any big ones that stand
Oh
out?
gosh, I wish I could go to my younger self and first say, stop worrying about the stupid stuff. I would have built my network stronger earlier in my career,
Okay.
and not looking at everyone as competitors. I was a leader. I was the president of the largest national association of plan advisors and representing over about 23,000 members. And the being raising my hand and being a leader, and all of a sudden
Hmm.
being asked to task with we're nominating you for president. I wasn't expecting, but what it was is when I figured out to grow my network and volunteer my own industry, advocate to help protect these plans because I do believe in the gift of them for all working Americans to have a bucket of money that is for their future retirement. But when I started advocating and growing my network, I realized the gift in that where I learned. I mean, I get on 2 calls every month. I've got fantastic. I've got the best network of by all accounts, my competitors, but we are all friends. We're family, and we learn from each other. So I would have built my network stronger and would have gotten involved earlier. I'm glad I'd figured that out because I think once I started raising my hand and sitting around at these round tables and started
Right.
really getting to know people, it became also more enjoyable to me. I've got, I get to go and learn from the best in the business. And
Right.
instead of looking at them as I got to protect my knowledge and protect my clients, now it's like, let's share. And then together we not only are impacting the industry, but we're impacting the clients we serve. We're helping the next generation come up. We all like I'll get a message and be like, hey, can you talk to this this gal or young man that are graduating, they want to get in our field, and can they interview you, or can you be a help network them.
Right.
And we all just always show up for each other, and
Awesome.
it's so
That's
I wish I would have done that sooner. That was, I think,
okay.
I got in my own way with being a little bit too protective of my business.
Okay. Okay. Sure. Sure. And that's not uncommon, particularly for the younger people starting off, right? To
Yeah.
be more competitive, and they don't have that abundance mindset. They think it's a zero sum game, right?
Oh,
And
100%. Well, they're going to take something from me,
yes.
so yeah,
Right.
I'm so thankful for that. I mean, it's just I always tell people start, even the younger people in my industry too. I always connect them with other younger people because I'm like, build your family now,
Right.
and not just, in our one of the groups, we have someone who's, from 35 to late 50s, so we'll have across the board too. But I just think the network is huge. Find your
Okay.
people, and
For
then
sure.
you grow stronger and quicker.
Sure. For sure. For sure. And so you'd say that was a challenge for you early on, is not
Early
having the
on was just
network?
I came from the wirehouses, and I think that was more of like, protect yours and run fast yourself. And then when
Okay.
I went on my own, I was like, if I open up of what I'm doing and why I'm getting clients, other people are going to take clients from me. I felt like, I was running fast trying to build a business, so I didn't raise my hand to really help in the industry.
Okay.
So I think there was some of that. I felt maybe a little bit more of like I was the lone wolf and I had to figure it out myself. So I think maybe that is where I kind of
Okay.
got in the way. But yeah, I think it was a little bit about, you kind of get you grow up thinking, and you kind of always say I got to fend for myself, and I think I
Right.
just held on to that a little bit, that bat too tight.
Sure. Sure. Okay. 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 Thank you for that.
Yeah,
Um, How about currently? Do you have a particular challenge
yeah.
for company goals or personal goals that you have to address or
You
overcome?
know, um, I think I had shared with you earlier before the podcast was recording. I had a health scare, for that what lasted the month of September, from a ruptured appendix followed by an infection, and I physically was not in a position. I had two life-threatening situations. I physically could not honor meetings. There were some I jumped on, and I was honest about where it was or what was happening, but I was able to delegate for others to tackle the bigger parts of those. But one of the things that opened my eyes to was how much time I was still wasting. I try to pride myself on efficiencies, and
But you could delegate even more.
I realized I'm not that needed in some of these situations. So I would say that was an eye opener for me.
Okay.
My biggest thing now too is I think I value so much more. I connect the connections in a bigger way. I think I learned this last year was the power of my morning routine. I'm someone who's, physical fitness is an important thing. And I always get up and I was running 10 steps ahead. And if before 6 a.m., if I hadn't marked a bunch of things off my list, I would thought I was already behind.
Right.
And a year ago, I was like, what in the world race did I get myself in? I had hit every goal I wanted to accomplish, yet I had no idea what my true authentic identity was beyond my position and leadership in the industry and with my clients. And I stopped figuring it out for myself. And so I started really diving into my work within. And so
Okay.
that created more of an expansive nature of what I could accomplish because I stopped
Nice.
dreaming. And so I picked
Right.
back up. I
Right.
had started writing a book one of my younger years, and I started working with a consultant. And so, what I've tackling the obstacle. I stopped dreaming bigger. And once you sell businesses and you take kind of that money drive off the table, not that you're still not
Mhm.
motivated, but once you take money off the table, and you take that time to just sit and figure out like,
Right.
what are my goals? It's kind of cool when you all of a sudden start thinking, holy crud, I can do what I'm doing. And then also do dream again. My younger self, I had written 100 goals in life. And the last one to accomplish is being on Oprah. So maybe my book will allow me that opportunity to talk with her on her podcast. But,
All right.
but I was dreaming
Shout
so
out right
big.
now to Oprah. Yeah.
Yes, yeah,
Get
yeah.
Renee
Hashtag
on there.
Oprah. Yeah, I'm already communicating with one of her old consultants on something
Nice.
else. I just read his book, but I stopped being that person, and you hit this level of success as an adult, and I have three fantastic kids, and I started to shift at even like my birthday was in April, and Mother's Day was after, and the things that my kids wrote, and even my husband wrote to me of the work when I started working on myself and dreaming and starting
Mhm.
this other, expansion to my goals as an adult, everyone around me noticed. And so I think we
Right.
tend to forget, we put our energy into, what we know, and then we put our head up and we're like, what did I just do? Am I still
Right.
creating something? And I show up differently for my clients too. I have the most
Nice.
fantastic clients, and so yeah, this last year I've changed. I've shifted of my energy. I always ask, I'll ask my husband, what will make today your perfect day? Not that like you're going to be on the golf course and you're going to, go, tee it up with Tiger Woods or something. It's like, no, but like, how are you showing up for yourself? How are you showing up for people?
Right.
And so I look at every day as a perfect day and the blessing in it, but I also look at like, where does my good energy go? And we play a game with our kids of it's really horrible and it could be really bad. I know you've got children. I've seen it. I saw
Yep.
you have two young ones or two kids. We say, what do you like about me and what do you not like about me? And we'll go on the
Hmm.
dinner table. It is you have to have thick skin in our family.
Sure.
And
In
I have
life.
learned, yeah, oh gosh, and it is hilarious. We go to even, what do you like that I wear? What do you not like that I wear? And it gets really funny. And I've got athletes, we're all pretty competitive with each other too. And I learned even right before that period that, I was coming home and I was logging in on my laptop at the kitchen counter. Like I wasn't shutting it off. I had my phone
Right.
with me, and I was hitting all my goals. I had all hit my goals. I was hitting financial level I had, dreamed of. And then I realized like I am like running. And so my mornings were consumed with, I first got up and I was like, oh my God, let me get through everything work. My first two lines on my to-dos, I still have a notepad. I still love this. And I cross
Yeah.
things off. My first two lines are about like my workouts, my devotion, my time in sauna. That's my time in quiet. And I spend it for me. I have a faith and it's my time, quiet time with the Lord. And I get clarity there. And
Nice.
I reach out to someone on the way to the office every day of, someone random who needs to hear from me and not maybe me particularly, but so by the time I'm having that first official meeting, I'm so grounded in my best self. And so my good
Right.
energy is going to the right places. And at the end of the day, I'm not exhausted of bringing all leaving my good energy with people that maybe didn't honor it or, maybe, I didn't have
Right.
to shell it out to. So I'm very
Okay.
protective of my time.
Yes, that's awesome. That's because that's something most people waste. They don't appreciate that that
Oh,
is their most valuable resource for sure.
100%. Yep. And I don't wait for things. I jump. I still jump. I'm still building my wings sometimes.
Right.
I say
Okay,
a lot of
excellent.
yeses. Yeah.
I went through a similar sort of journey. I mean, I spent decades in technical biomedical sciences. I'd be
Yeah.
doing molecular genetics, electrophysiology, electron
I was reading, I was like, that's
microscopy,
spectacular.
and
Yeah.
I'd be working on that and increasing my skills, but not working on myself, right? And so it wasn't until I was sort of an adult with kids and an entrepreneur, and you sort of start hanging out with other really successful, growth-minded
Yeah.
people, and you start going, whoa, you know,
Yeah.
and yeah, I went through a lot of similar
Yeah.
questions, right?
Well,
And you get a
and
little
you
more
get challenged.
self-actualized.
And it challenges you,
Yes.
and it's like I do something too. I get my mind thinking differently. I micro learn every day. I learn something new. And so sometimes I'll come out and be like, how many times does the moon orbit the earth? Or how many, how long does a queen bee live? I mean, it's some random facts, but I always try to keep that curiosity, because then when you're curious, start your day with a curiosity thing. And there's a book
Right.
called Know It All that has 2 days, and it could be about history, or it could be about the planets, it could be about something random. And I don't remember everything I read, but if I remember one sentence from it, but it gets
But
your
it
mind
keeps you
thinking.
curious.
It keeps you curious. And then when you meet people, like, I mean, it's like I have a lunch tomorrow with someone who was one of my biggest competitors in town, and we're very close. I'm looking forward to this lunch with him. And the had I not been curious, I wouldn't have gotten to know him in this way,
Right.
and it's just I and it has to be authentic, otherwise, people see right through it. But we were at a lunch the other day, and my husband brought up a project he was working on, and no one asked what was that project. And it was really interesting because we drove away going, the meeting was all about them. It's like not one person said, well, what is that project you're working on? And it's a pretty fantastic project. So you recognize being around people that, like, I have these group texts sometimes that you're like, oh my gosh, I got to go back and figure out what everyone's been chiming in on. But it's like people that were all like doing some pretty awesome things. And if needed, we all just show up for each other too in big ways,
Right.
like they did for me in that last month.
Well, that's the impact that that sort of life has, right?
Yep.
When you're authentic and
Yes.
you're little, I guess, selfless, right? And you're
Yeah.
trying to provide value to people.
Well, and that's clients see that too. They see your why. That's why
Hmm.
I have, some great, very long-term 25-year clients. And they know my why is them, is 100% them. They're not a sale to me. And so when I show up, like, I 100% I'm there for them. They're going to have value of their
Right.
time with me. We have the most fantastic meetings. Like, I do keep my investment committee meetings because we'll cover anywhere from the first question is anything changing the organization that we need to adjust for? Because sometimes you never
Okay.
know if they're going to they're going to have a big acquisition or something
Right.
magical, from a growth standpoint, as has happened with a big client, closing a big client. But the first thing is about, let's learn about you first. And then we dive into, compliance administration, market updates, what's going on in the markets, what's going on with your
Right.
investment lineup. Let's talk regulatory and legislation. That's how do we keep you protected? And we look at data on the plan. And the meetings are like, I always say, put your Nikes on, we're running,
Nice.
you have a captive audience that has an hourly rate. The last thing I want to be is on someone's calendar and they're like, oh my God, I've got to meet with Renee today. I want them to be like, this is going to be a great meeting and I can't wait because
Right.
I know I'm going to walk away smarter. Yeah.
All right. On that note, I'll add that I've had this debate with people over the past year where they're very anti-meetings, right? And I'm like, that's
Yeah.
because you're not doing them right.
Exactly. And I'm still like, I had a client meeting. She was a CFO of 2 companies. We have lunch and we've developed a friendship. So we did it over, we do it over lunch. And then you mix the pleasure with business. And we went through 2 companies and did their committee meetings. And it's like, I look forward to it. And so I still think physically showing up when you can is
Mhm.
huge.
Yes, it is.
But yeah, and we have to have meetings because, and most of them, because of the fact of, at least for my clients, because we have to have documents for the audit to show
Ah,
that so there's meeting minutes and stuff too for them.
okay.
But yeah, some of the other, I also don't take unnecessary meetings. I also always respect people's time. So we have
Sure.
a lot of vendor partners that are fantastic human beings, but to have another meeting, it's like, I just don't have the time sometimes for
Right.
those, but I want to give them
Yeah.
the respect. So
Right.
sometimes I'll give an introduction to another colleague that they can maybe expand, their circle. And, there are people I'm still doing business with, but I just don't have the time for a meeting that isn't
Right.
going to be, something that I'm going to be looking forward to myself
Right.
because of the my to-do list.
They don't have to be long meetings either. I'd like to point out
Totally.
that they can be
A phone call.
micro standing meetings, things like that, where
Oh,
nobody
yeah.
sits down. We just deal with the thing and move out,
I love it.
like a
Yep.
huddle,
And sometimes
right?
a phone call. Sometimes a
Yeah,
phone
right.
call. You're like, can we satisfy this over a phone call? Like, and I have a client that it's a law firm client that we cannot get this committee meeting scheduled. So it's like, you know what? I have already met with the principals individually for their own individual accounts, and they represent. I can do the meeting in an email because I've already talked with you guys individually.
Right.
So so sometimes we even do that. Let's just document it as an email communication.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Every time I have legal calls, when we have like multiple lawyers on each team or something, I'm just like,
Oh, yeah.
this is going way too long.
Oh my gosh. And I'll have like Lorinda on my team as she manages my calendar. And she's always good because I'm always like, yeah, throw it on, I'll do it on the car ride. And she's like, do you really want to take that from the car? And I'm like, well, that's a call I can take from the car. That I don't have to be on camera, or this is something I want to do in person. But she's really good about like, don't do it, because you'll be like, and sometimes I'm like committee meetings, I'm like, let's just go rapid fire. Let me do 5 in a row. And then sometimes I'll forget, like, did I already talk about this? Because it'll be a different client, but I'll say, let's just knock them out because I'm already in that momentum and I'm already, then I'm just not needing the next day to say, okay, what's happening
Right.
today in the market that I need to shift gears. But I like sometimes there's some of the meetings I like to, the bundling, if you have the same
Right.
types of meetings, because then you can go through them rapid fire and the preparation is a lot easier.
Right.
But some of them too, sometimes when you have an audience, I'm always like, do I really need to sit on this much time?
Right. That's
Yeah.
a good point in terms of bundling your meetings by context, right? So your brain doesn't have to change gears too
Totally.
much.
Oh yeah. And then I make sure I have my coffee and I've got good energy because I want to make sure each client's getting that,
Sure.
that part of me, because
Yeah.
I
The
really
fully stimulated Renee.
Oh yes, full like you give me which is interesting after this health thing. I don't like coffee as much as I used to. Now I'm drinking tea and stuff. I'm like, what happened to the 4 or 5 cups of coffee a day person? It's the weirdest thing. My taste buds are like changed. So yeah, I good thing I still have the energy though. So that's good.
Right.
But now I'm just
Yeah.
not needing that the coffee infusion that I usually have. So. The
Okay.
nitro cold brew I would do. I have one of my friends I used to work with, they used to work with me. She's like, did you just have a nitro cold brew? And so I'm like, sorry.
Maybe why? Why do you think I did?
Yeah. I'm like, sorry, Carrie. She always knew when I had one.
Funny. That's funny.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Renee Scherzer, if people would like to connect with you or learn more, where can they go? What should they do?
Yes, Renee Scherzer, Scherzer on LinkedIn is always a great way to connect with me. Through the One Digital website, if you just look up advisors and you put in the Scottsdale zip code, I'll pop up, or you can put my name in and I'll pop up there as well. But yeah, I would love for people. I'm always an open door if I can ever be a resource to anyone. I think I've shared before too. I do believe in helping the next generation. So if there's someone younger who's listening who is thinking about getting into the investment field, I think there's plenty of seats for you.
There's a mentor waiting.
Yes.
That's awesome.
I think for anyone looking to hit financial goals and make an impact on people's lives, I love what I do. So please connect with me in that capacity as well. And I really do appreciate the conversation.
All right. Me too. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for listening and watching the conversation. Thank you very much, Renee Scherzer, for joining me today.
My pleasure.
All right.
Okay. Thanks
Appreciate
so much.
you sharing your story and your impact and your energy.
No, thank you.
Good stuff. Thank you.
I protect it.
Inspired by our guests? Visit phoenixprosperitypodcast.com/guest and join us on the show and share your success story with Tim. The spotlight awaits.